Waiting on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay, I think we are all set here.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see anybody else coming in. Okay, so good evening, Hammond North. It's December 17th, 6:10 p.m. For the regular board meeting. So for the attendance, Randy Vaughn,
Here,
Chris Conti,
Here.
Tom Deeds,
Here.
Tracy Smiley, Tracy. Yep, raise your hand.
She's got muted somehow here.
Yeah, can you unmute her? And
I'm gonna ask her to.
yeah, Tim Fritz.
There.
Okay, and Jan Welch is sick, so she won't be joining us tonight. Before we go on to the business, just a short comment, a statement from me, the president of the board. At the place we're at, without a contract, I see this as my personal statement. There are three things the board is doing simultaneously. They're obviously all related. One, we're trying to find another buyer and do a direct sale. Two is trying to proceed with the petition action to make sure we get over those hurdles so that can be done as rapidly as possible. Three, we're continuing to get signatures for the consent to sell, as well as that means the quitclaim deed so that the closing can happen if we have a buyer. So I just keep in mind that it's not one or the other. All three things are moving forward. One doesn't necessarily wait for the other. So with that, first item of business, Randy, for approval of minutes.
Yes, I move that we approve the minutes of the special board meeting of December 10th. Those minutes were sent out a few days ago.
Second.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. Any comments on the board? Okay, all those in favor? 6-0. Okay. Is Greg on? Do you know Randy? I didn't see him log.
I didn't see him log in. Let me look.
He did say that he might be able to make it tonight.
I do not see him. I'm looking in the alphabetical list and he's not there.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll read some of the what he had he wanted to mention the key parts of it. One, in terms of staff scheduling update, Tim Baldrek currently and moving forward, I believe is on 3 days a week, Monday through Wednesday, and then on call on another as we need him. He's working an alternative location on January 1st. Greg Hurst begins 2 days per week, Tuesday and Friday, with specific days subject to change based upon our needs, and remote for the other 3 days. Mickey is working Monday through Friday until further notice for the sale of the building. He had some mention for the winterization. I think we may want to postpone that. Tim, do you have his? I'll read that if Tim doesn't have it when we do the winterization report. He did also say the snow removal. I know that's a point of controversy, but in order to make sure fulfill requirements, if the fire department were to be called, that it's been maintained at a minimum amount and only to keep an open lane for emergency response, contractors, trash removal, and if owners are coming to the building and access to the office. So that is Greg's report that I have. Actually, let me say one other thing that I've been working with Greg on, which is the audit report, which is usually signed in August. That's in the process. It hasn't been signed yet, but we are working on that. And Greg is forwarding the information that we need for that. So any questions from the board on that? Without Greg present. Okay, next item is treasurer's report. Tracy.
The approval of the bill, I gave the treasurer's report last time.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear
Yeah.
you.
Okay. So no, I was just saying I gave the treasurer report the last time. So I was gonna go down through the invoice that needs to be paid as well as some updates from the committee meeting we had.
Okay, let me just add then, I know it's a point of, we have raised plenty of times that in terms of the legal costs we have to date, that petition costs to date are roughly $137,000, with other legal costs being roughly $75,000. So then
Thanks. That was part of my report.
you want to move on to invoices,
Thanks,
so
John.
sorry.
That's
Okay.
all right.
You want to
So
go on,
for
play my hearing. You want to go on to the invoices then?
yes. So and then I'll give a finance report when we get to that. So I am making a motion to pay the seal invoice number 037099774-11 in the amount of $601,492.32. This is the 7.5% of the 8,019,897.58 recovery from Landmark. It is 75% of that recovery.
Is there a second? Well, Tim seconds it. Okay, discussion among the board.
So Tracy, this will be the last invoice from SIL, correct?
That's correct. So considering this was the last insurance payment that we received, this is the last invoice from SEAL at the 7.5% that we agreed to pay at the beginning of this. So this is it.
Any other questions? I should add that there's been a number of emails back and forth that I've had with our share with the board from Jason Marrero detailing what information and documents SIL has in their possession. And I've gotten a number of documents as well as specific questions. I know that many owners have asked about specific items that were they covered or not covered by the insurance payments. And the bottom line is that there was disagreement on almost all the payments, but that the amount that Landmark was willing to give was less than what SIL and Hunt and TRS had asked for. So it's hard to find a one-for-one that they're paying for this, but not that document. Randy.
We have an owner's chat that relates to this whenever you're ready for that.
Sure. Go ahead.
Should I read that? Can you explain the large legal cost for the petition action since we haven't made any progress in moving it along the legal track?
That's not germane to the discussion right now.
That's true. We're talking about the SIL document. We did go over the legal costs earlier. I mentioned it, but let's hold that, I think, to the end of the meeting. So there really should be questions about the SIL payment.
Somebody remember it.
Any other chats? Okay, no other questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor of paying the SIL bill? Okay, 6-0. Okay, Tracy. Want to move on to the finance report? Do you have any other bills?
That's it.
Okay. So the finance committee?
Yes. So I'm sorry, was someone gonna say something? I thought I heard someone talking, sorry. So the finance committee has met last Friday and we met on Monday as well. Some of the things we covered in the finance committee was we reviewed the month-to-date and the year-to-date expenses. We talked through the fact that we are spot on a little bit more positive for the HOA fees that are coming in thus far. There wasn't some utility concerns. Greg was working to get some of the utilities bills so we can establish a new run rate now that we have done all the due diligence around the water and the electric. I know we're going to anticipate that HVAC costs, which is approximately 80,000. I think I saw in the email the other day. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. And we also discussed the legal fees, John, that you just mentioned, and the portion of the partition action and the cost of that. We also discussed the staffing measures. So we did look at some potential opportunities around staffing that we'll discuss in a different session. And then at the end of the day, I put together a spreadsheet that walked through our potential ability to reduce the HOA fee starting in January. I sent that to the finance committee. We're going to review that to come up with a recommendation on what we can do. That would include potentially leveraging some of the contingency funding that we have as a part of our total income. And then we'll come back to this session to not only make that recommendation, but then vote on that and start as quickly as we possibly can to give some relief to owners starting in January. There is some of a timing change with what we can do from an invoice perspective, but we are including Greg in these conversations to get that updated. So more to come on that.
Okay, any board questions about finance report? Okay. Any owners want to raise their electronic hand? Any questions? All right, seeing none, buildings and ground. Tim, you want to talk about? Go ahead, Tracy.
Sorry. No, 1 second. There was a comment in the chat earlier regarding delinquencies. I thought I gave that update last week, but as of November, the delinquencies is approximately 722,062, with approximately making up 70 owners.
Okay. All right, with no questions, can we move on for the building grounds? Tim? Or the, well, Forest Shore Progress. I don't think it's a building grounds report.
Yeah. 4-Star has completed the installation of the units that we had talked to them about. I think they've got a little bit more cleanup work to do. And they've so we're running the building now, and we had a good test last weekend with the minus temperatures. Tim came in over the weekend because we had those 2 bad days, Saturday and Sunday, and Tim came in and surveyed the building and made sure that the boilers were working properly and that the air was getting distributed and that we didn't have any freezing sections in the building. We're still working on sort of fine tuning how many units we're running and how we're running them and things like that. So, and then that was part of what Tracy said, is we're going to try to review the electric bill, because what we did when we created the budget for utilities, we really didn't have any basis on which to do that when the building became unoccupied. So David actually suggested putting together a running budget, not a budget, but a running total of how we're doing against the budget. And we're going to try to look at the electric bills and the utility bills and get a better projection on what they're going to do for us the next couple of months.
Any questions from the board?
There's no, there is a chat question here.
Will the running of the additional HVAC units reflect on any owner's personal Duke bill? It will if you haven't turned your bill over to Greg, but he is reimbursing people. So as an example, the O1s and the O3s, those units will be running for sure at some times. So those people will have to request reimbursement for their bill, but they will be reimbursed for the bills because they're the units that are being used to heat the building.
Yeah, does this mean also probably outside particular stacks on the second, first through the eighth floor? Some units are running, aren't they?
Right. And
Yeah, so
the penthouses, we're running units in the penthouses. And I'm not sure exactly how many units they're running on the north end, but there will be, if you get a bill that's significantly more than it's been up until now, that's the reason is that we're probably running a unit we're running the HVAC in your unit to heat the building.
and I think, Tim, you've reported before that we're still learning this and adjusting, which units have to be on at what temperature. And obviously with the warmer weather tomorrow, there probably won't be running that much, but
Right.
it's an ongoing process.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be, and it's just going to depend on weather. I mean, that was a bad snap that we had there for a few days, but it sort of gave Tim and Greg an idea of how the building was going to react. And hopefully we'll be able to fine tune that as we go along a little bit.
Any
Tim,
questions? Go ahead, Tracy.
No, I received the estimate for the work that they did. Do we know or anticipate any additional work as we get through these winter months?
That estimate should have been the complete estimate. Greg was negotiating with them on a couple of items that we weren't quite sure on.
Okay. Thanks.
Do we have an estimate what the cost is going to be?
Yeah, he sent we had a true estimate and he sent back we may be able to reduce that by a few $1,000s. So it was hovering somewhere around 80 to 86,000 in the email. But once he gets back to the whole chain, we'll have a concrete number.
Yeah, we had originally estimated that it was going to be in the mid to upper 80s, and it was coming in the low 90s actually. So, and that's Greg. That's what Greg's doing is he thinks that there was a couple duplications in the invoice.
Great, thank you. Any other questions of the board members? Any owners want to raise their hand for any questions or winterization? Okay, then the next item would be Randy, summary of the legal update.
Okay. Our lawsuits, the Cross-Creek lawsuit, we are still bouncing back and forth with counter proposals for settlement of that. We thought we were pretty close a few weeks ago, but then the last counter that we received from Cross-Creek added something to that demand that was not previously in there. And so we took a big step back. We're dealing with that, and we will counter that. And that's our next move with Cross-Creek. With Porter, two things. One, the negotiation, not negotiations, the mediation for that will be January 21st. Um, and that's with Jack Scott, I believe is his name, is the mediator that's going to take care of that. And before that mediation date, we would like to meet with the previous board. They are named in that lawsuit as defendants. And so we need to get together with them and make sure that we're all together in being able to take part in the mediation as a unified um, voice. Now, the partition action, since I asked that question too late before, the question was if we haven't really made any legal progress in the partition action, why are the bills so high with that? Why are we up to 130,000? A big part of that was, of course, our lawyers had to write the partition document, the suit, the complaint. We had to, the lawyers had to track down all the defendants. There are 180 plus, well, the defendants are, I think there were 110 or something like that, plus the mortgage companies, those are defendants as well. And all of those people had to be served. They all had to be contacted to be made aware of what and the suit itself had to be printed out and mailed to all those people. And it was quite a few pages. Those of you that received that know that. So that was a lot of office expense and a lot of legal expense just to get us started in this thing. So
Wasn't
that's
title search,
a big part of the money that we paid on that
wasn't
to this
title search
point. And then we've had several mortgage companies who were defendants who have filed answers, and those have to be processed, dealt with by our lawyers. So even though we haven't appeared in court, our lawyers haven't appeared in court to argue the case or any of that kind of thing, there has been a lot of work being done. And so that's what the cost has been. It's just getting this thing up and running and getting it moving.
Tim, you had a comment?
Yeah, Randy, wasn't title search part of that also expense?
That's true. I'm sorry, I forgot that. Yeah. We had to run a title search to make sure that we have the right owners for each unit. So yeah,
Yeah,
that
there's a
was
lot
an additional expense. So just getting it up and running has been quite a bit of an expense.
Yeah, it doesn't appear that there's been much progress, but there has been a lot of stuff that's had to be done in order to meet the process.
So I'll read some of the chat questions. One is cross-creek demand being paid by E&O and D&O insurance? And I think that's without getting details, they are party to the negotiations, and we'll see how that plays out. I don't think they would be there are other things in that demand that clearly it would be concessions on the part of the homeowner association. The issues in these suits, Forrest, I think that we can, it's complicated, and you can reach out to me individually. I'll reach out to you to go over them. I think most of the owners, we've gone over this a number of times. Randy, do you want to answer the Rule 20 question from Carolyn?
Well, the answer is our lawyer. We've sent that on to our lawyer. Apparently that was sent to us a few months ago. I apologize. I missed it. I never saw that until the recent email. And so I sent that to Julie Gugino, who is our lead in the partition action. The question about that posed was apparently there is a rule in Hamilton County that a partition action of our anticipated um, volume, we're hoping, well, anyway, if the partition action yields an award greater than $15,000, the lawyers are entitled to a fee of 3% of that. Well, if in the auction for the building and the sale price, and also in the appraisal of the building, take a round number. If that comes in at $10 million, I hope it does, but it may not. But if it comes in at $10 million, they would be entitled to 3% of that, or lawyers would be. 3% would be $300,000. The question that the owner asked us in email is, why don't we wait and see what the lawyers are entitled to before we pay any invoices for the partition action coming in from our lawyer? As I've just described, they've done a lot of work so far. And my question then to the lawyers is this money that we have paid so far for the partition action, is that deducted from the 300,000, so to speak? And I'm making this number up, but would that be deducted? Is that counted toward the 300,000 that the lawyers would be paid? I'm waiting for an answer. I just sent that this afternoon, and we will see what their opinion of that is. Of course, there might be a conflict of interest there, but we may need to get a different opinion about that. But that's kind of where that stands. That's in just in flux right now. We don't know what really the answer to that is. Now, if the partition action, if it doesn't yield a sell, in other words, if we terminate the partition action because we sell the building directly, then according to this rule, our lawyers would still be entitled to fees essentially based on the work that they had done. So did I make that clear? That was off the top of my head, but that's kind of where that stands right now.
The bottom line is we've asked Finney for the answer to that question, and we'll let the members know when we get an answer. So Michelle, you got a comment?
Yeah, thank you. I have a legal question. Regarding the settlement cases, this board has stated in the past that the DNO will not cover any of these settlement costs. Is that accurate?
It's a difficult question. I'll take the first stab.
Okay.
Randy's glad to have me do it.
Yes.
As I think most of the owners know, CNA has asserted that they're not obligated to pay.
Correct.
However, as I mentioned, there are in mediation. There's a possibility they would contribute money, but nothing I think can be said much more than that until we reach an agreement.
So can this board guarantee the owners that they will not use assets that belong to all owners to settle these cases?
I think you've asked that before. It's a very reasonable question.
I'm gonna keep asking it because I will tell you.
Well, I understand that, and I was going to repeat what was said before, is that we certainly hope not to contribute any money to that. But nothing has been decided yet, and so we'll have to see.
So what I hear you saying then is that, and Carolyn Ford is telling me to stop asking, we got it. I'm not sure everybody in the ownership gets that we, in my opinion, are now being extorted by a group of people who may end up taking more money out of our pockets. This has been a remarkably expensive and disastrously financial awfulness for everyone. So, if people want to just write it and just say, okay, if the plaintiffs get whatever they want, great, you can take another few $1,000s from me. Who cares at this point? I'll shut up. But it pisses me off. And that's all I'm going to say. And And if the plaintiffs end up getting money, it is going to be an incredibly difficult pill for me personally to swallow. And I don't know what I will do if that happens, to be honest with you. Thank you.
Okay. Are there other questions? People did ask an update on my Stacy's bid. The board had talked to Mike. I've had phone calls with Mike. We have an LOI from him. The price is right now currently 13.5 million. The price that Venture had proposed. There's an LOI that is complicated and has a lot of particular provisions. And without getting to the details, because it's ongoing discussion with Mike, Mike's agreed to remove a lot of it. And verbally, we've had some assurances, and the question is whether we can reduce them all to writing and get a LOI that reflects what we think that the board can agree to, that the owners can agree to. But, you know, it's still in negotiations. I can't say much more than that at this point. And well, certainly the last proposal, the board will talk about it in executive session. And certainly if we ever make any decision, the community will know. In terms of the other question, do you need insurance? According to the bylaws, I believe you are required to have HO6 insurance, but many owners at this point do not have it. So when are you required to get it? When your insurance expires. And in terms of the board been approached by the port, they were approached and they declined. That's the information I've had. So if there's nobody else's hand has been raised, I think we'll move on. The next report would be the consent to sell committee from Chris Conti.
I didn't know I was to give that report. I must have.
Oh, well.
Must have missed something.
Yeah, well, Jan was sick. Tom, Chris, can you report all about it?
I don't think anything has changed from the last time we spoke about this. I wasn't at the last meeting, but I don't think anything has changed. There's still,
No, we're still
Six.
6 short,
yeah, still
Mhm.
6.
Yep.
and we're working to resolve that.
Okay. Any questions, Randy?
There are chats if nobody on the board has anything.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I would like to know, and I imagine others would as well, what each of the non-signers want in return for signing, and whether we could use financial resources we are paying to attorneys, et cetera, to meet the demands of the non-signers. That was sort of answered or amended. Says what should they it says like what? They should be subject to legal action, not be given more than other owners. So yeah. That's just the controversy about these 6 people who have not signed. I don't know what the answer is.
I mean, Jan has covered that in previous meetings. I don't know if Chris or Tom, you want to answer that, but my recollection is that it's a wide range of different reasons why
I can
people
probably
aren't
speak to a couple reasons. One owner thinks the buildings, they're worth a lot more. Another owner wants to know exactly when and how much they're going to get. So,
And at this point, without a contract, we don't
Right.
have a date.
And other owners haven't given any reason.
that's
So
somewhat true, but we're working on that.
we are.
All right. If we're finished with that committee reports, then under old business, is Rhonda on for election committee report? Yeah. Yes,
Okay,
I see.
Rhonda, I found you if you can unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this is just as the chair of the election committee, for people who weren't on last time or for people who were, I just wanted to make a reminder that this is the month, December is the month to fill out a candidate form if anyone is interested in running. You can get them from the office, you can call them, you can email them, you can stop by, and they are due on the December 30th by 4:30 p.m. Then two reminders of that. One is you cannot be in arrears to be a candidate, or you cannot be in arrears to vote in the upcoming election. You have to be in good financial standing by January 10th at 4:30 p.m. to be able to vote. So, second is then we will announce who is running and send out their information and all of the dates that are linked to this election in early January. So people will expect to get a packet in early January. There will be a candidates night on January 26th. Any questions that you would have for the candidates would be due by January 20th at 4:30 p.m. And again, all of this will be listed in the letter that comes out in early January. And then the election is actually February 5th at the annual owners meeting. So the election committee is myself, Rhonda Whitten. It includes Bruce Fairbanks, Barbara Hanley, Susan Hoskins, and Janet Schoenbachler. And that's it, unless anyone has any questions.
And while we wait for questions to be raised, I would urge the owners to temper a little bit the chat for the one-on-one back and forth. Any questions for the election committee? Well, thank you very much then, Rhonda. Okay, there was a chat comment, which I would say Stacy told us that 70 owners are in arrear. I don't think the number, it depends on how you do it, because some of the owners could just miss part of a month or 1 month. But I would say there are over 50 owners who owe more than $1,000, which is obviously more than a month. David, can we unmute David?
And could we go back to the last issue about the election?
Sure.
This financial situation is above and beyond extraordinary. And I'm just wondering how people feel about giving some mercy to people that just can't pay these fees. We're going to lose the votes of a lot of owners if we don't make some accommodations.
Well, I'll take that.
Yes,
I believe that's in the bylaws. It's in the blue book, but I think it's also in the bylaws. We'll take a look at that. The bylaws are a more complicated process to change and amend that. So I think as much as I sympathize, I think we have to go uniformly by the rules that are laid down. Tracy, did you want to add?
no, Rhonda can go. She had her hand up.
Rhonda, unmute yourself. There we go. Oh, I'm sorry.
There, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is a good question. And actually, the election committee did talk about it. I think the board has talked about it also, and Greg has too. I think the tricky thing is, because I certainly am in sympathy of your feelings about it, and I feel the same way in many ways, is how do we decide who does and who doesn't? There are people who are in arrears even before the fires. There are people who are in arrears because they've taken a stand. And there's people who are in arrears because they can't afford it. And when we start then, how complicated does that get? It seems like for us to then begin to try to figure out, well, who should and who shouldn't, and how do we figure that out? So it feels like the clearest way for us is to follow the governing documents. So it has certainly been discussed. I highly empathize and sympathize with your feelings, but it feels like a very slippery road to go down. And we felt like it was the clearest thing we could do is to follow the governing documents.
Well, the other clear thing, and it probably isn't the best of ideas, is just let everybody vote. I mean, this is just something that none of us have ever in our wildest dreams thought would happen. And I think it's important to get the voices of as many people as we can. I don't mean to be contrary. I'm not stuck on this idea. I just want to make sure it's thoroughly aired at the meeting.
Any other comments from the board? Or
I
any
was just
other
gonna say, I
owners?
think that's a good point because it is an unprecedented situation. I'm sure when the bylaws were drafted, it pertained to something different and not this situation, but it is something to think about.
Thanks, Tracy.
All right. Could we move on then?
Yes.
Okay. So the next thing is termination of Hunt and TRS contracts. Hunt has received a letter of termination from Finney Law Firm. And there is one, so there's no work being done by construction work, related work. There is no everything, the electrical lockout tagout was turned over to Greg and he's handling that. There is a legal bill from Hunt that has been questioned by the lawyers, and they have not received an answer yet to that. So therefore that bill has not been paid, and we'll evaluate an answer when we get that. TRS has not had any work in the building for even longer. I think it's about 3 months. And we've had discussions with the Finney Law Firm again about sending them a termination letter also, but that has not been sent yet. So I know there's been questions about that from owners. And are there any comments about that from the board first? Or from owners? Okay, moving along. Randy, there was a unanimous approval that we did.
Yeah, I'll just, the following motion was moved by Jan Welch, seconded by Chris Conti, and approved unanimously by the board. And the motion is, be it moved that the board approve the letter to owners of gutted units offering reimbursement for appliances in accordance with the Young and Associates documents. And that was passed unanimously. The reasoning for that, I guess, should I explain what
Sure.
the discussion was?
Sure, yes.
Okay. We received a couple of 2 or 3 emails from owners of original gutted units indicating that they had received no compensation for appliances in those units. They were told that they would receive compensation. This is back at the original, right after the fire. They were told that they would get compensation, so they really didn't need to file for their basic appliances. Upgrades, yes, but not the building original level appliances. We have found documentation from Young and Associates to back that up, that we actually did receive insurance money from Landmark to cover those appliances. Young and Associates put out a huge complicated list for each unit of what items were going to be replaced in each unit. It runs from paint all the way to appliances and even light bulbs in some. And on the gutted units, the stove, refrigerator, and dishwashers were on that list to be replaced, indicating that the insurance had been received for those items. So the basic idea then of this letter Well, okay, so these owners then, some of them didn't, some of them did apply to their HO6 companies. The ones that applied to their HO6 companies, some were reimbursed and some weren't, but some of them listened to the board at the time and didn't file for the loss of those appliances. Later on, we found another letter where we were all told that if you were in a partially gutted unit or just any other unit in the building besides those original 23 that were totally gutted, you could remove your appliances or leave them in the unit and allow them to be wrapped up and put back into the unit when you're done. But then the board also told those people, that they had until November 15th to get those appliances out of the building if they wanted them. Well, the people in the gutted units didn't even have that option because their appliances were disposed of within a week or two after the fire. So we received the insurance money and we need to pass that on to these owners if they can show us that they have not been reimbursed. And that's going to be explained in a letter that they will receive. And that's what this motion was about.
And let me add, we do know that some owners have received money for some appliances. And let me say the appliances are the refrigerator, the dishwasher, the stovetop, and the oven. And things like microwave weren't around in the beginning when the building was built in 1965. So it's only those appliances. It's only the amounts that's listed in the Young document, and the Young document depreciates the amounts. So those are the amounts, and it's the same amount for each one of the gutted units. And I think you covered it, Randy, just to reiterate that owners are going to have to produce a letter, something that they write or the insurance company writes that documents that they have not received money for these appliances. We are aware that some owners received funds for some appliances. And so those, then we're not going to be reimbursing those owners. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the owners? Yeah, David. I can just say this is probably your chat question, David. And the betterments, it was a separate question. The betterments were never covered by the Young documents or therefore the landmark money. And so regretfully, the betterments is a question for the owners and their HO6 insurance. Let me also say that the other funds, I think all the other funds, unless we have documentation otherwise, that we received is the money that we've deposited, getting interest on, and that's the money that will be distributed, as Tracy has shown in the payout scheme to the owners, according to the government documents, by the percent ownership of the common elements. All right. Then someone asked it before. The last item we had was an update on Stacy's LOI. I don't know if there are any questions again, but we had talked about it earlier. I don't know if any other owners or the board members have questions about that, but it was on our agenda that we were looking at. Okay. Well, I guess it's a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I have a
Yeah, Randy.
I need to apologize, I think. We sent out a one call last week saying that the holiday party had been canceled. That I thought that was apparently some people did not know about that holiday party. It was publicized on Facebook. I guess if you're not on the Facebook Hammond North page, you didn't know about it. But because of the impending inclement weather, the organizers of that party had canceled it. That was all that was. I guess there was no official holiday party being paid for out of our funds or anything like that.
Thanks,
So I hope
Randy.
that explains that.
So happy holidays. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Chris motion and seconded by Randy. All
Yeah.
those in favor? Okay, passes, and I will collect the chat. Thank you very much, Hammond North.